He grew up with a last name that carried power. But when Jasmine Crockett uncovered something that had stayed hidden for years, Barron Trump finally reached his breaking point. The story didn't explode instantly. It began quietly, a PDF uploaded to an unknown Telegram channel without explanation. A few users shared it around as if it were some forgotten digital artifact. The file was titled, Sealed Custody, 2005 Jurisdiction Transfer. No one knew who released it or why it surfaced now. But one line near the end, bolded, partially redacted, set everything off, paternity results sealed per executive request. That single sentence triggered an online storm. Within hours, the document spread across X, formerly Twitter, then Reddit, and later Facebook. TikTok revived old conspiracy threads. No one had verified evidence, but it didn't matter. People filled in the gaps faster than facts could respond. The rumor: Barron Trump might not be Donald Trump's biological son. At first, it seemed like another exaggerated claim from an online fringe group. But the file name mirrored an actual 2005 Palm Beach County court record. The same year Barron was born. That detail made people stop dismissing it. The morning after the leak, independent reporters began investigating. One of them, Clarissa Doyle from Tempe, Arizona, posted a Substack article that went viral in less than 4 hours. She had spent years studying family court redactions. "There's information missing from this file," she wrote. "And the visible sections were never meant to be public." Clarissa avoided speculation. She didn't need to. The internet handled that part on its own. By the following day, cable outlets picked up the story. O was first, then SBC. Fox hesitated but eventually ran a vague ticker. Old custody records tied to Trump family leak, details unclear. It was just enough to stir public interest. Then things escalated. Someone claiming to be a former paralegal at the Palm Beach County Courthouse submitted an anonymous voice message to a Washington-based podcast. The altered, shaky voice emphasized one key point: that document was heavily restricted. No one outside the family should have ever seen it. If it's public now, someone with high-level access wanted it released. By the weekend, hashtags like #BarronDNA and #TrumpFamilyFiles were trending worldwide. Memes flooded social platforms, some mocking, some harsh, others obsessively analyzing every detail. Old photos of Barron circulated online, often side-by-side comparisons with other public figures, memes, and conspiracy theories. Even celebrities got pulled into the mix. While some treated it as a joke, others took notice. People close to the Trump family began speaking cautiously. One former campaign aide, speaking anonymously to a Florida radio station, said, "Barron has always been different. Quiet, yes, but Melania's protectiveness has always been notable." That statement shifted attention. People stopped scrolling and started paying attention. The White House, though Trump was no longer in office, issued a vague denial via spokesperson. "There is absolutely no truth to any online rumors regarding the president's family. This is a violation of privacy, and we are pursuing legal action." The statement did little to calm the discussion. If anything, it intensified it. Barron, now 19, had historically stayed out of the spotlight. He rarely posted online, skipped rallies, and avoided most press events. Yet now, strangers were speculating on his life, his appearance, and his silence, all stemming from one line in one questionable document. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett, a congresswoman in Washington, was preparing a statement, and she had no intention of being subtle. It was a humid Tuesday morning in Tallahassee when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett approached the podium. No entourage, no makeup team, just her sharp navy blue suit, a stack of papers in one hand, and the calm, focused look she wore whenever she meant business. Reporters weren't sure why the press conference was called last minute, but the moment she looked up, the room fell silent. "No one here is above the law," she began. "And no American family, no matter how famous or powerful, can rewrite history in permanent ink." She paused. Eyes shifted, phones and cameras raised. "Yesterday, certain documents were leaked from a custody case connected to the Trump family," she continued. "What I can confirm today, without exaggeration or speculation, is that the documents are real, and the missing information was intentionally removed." Reporters leaned forward. Raymond Shaw from the Miami Herald called out, "Congresswoman, are you saying the Trump family altered court records?" Crockett did not flinch. "I'm saying the Department of Justice needs to open a formal inquiry into how these redactions happened," she stated. This wasn't merely a privacy issue. It was concealment. The word landed heavily. It wasn't just about what was hidden. It was about who had the power to hide it, and why. For months, Crockett had challenged GOP members on Capitol Hill. She was known for her determination, but this wasn't political sparring. It felt deliberate, targeted. Her office had compiled fragments, sealed filing numbers, transfer notices, quiet judge reassignments. Individually, each piece seemed insignificant, but together they suggested interference. Something happened in 2005, and someone with influence ensured it remained hidden. Crockett placed the stack of papers on the podium, eyes locked with the cameras. "You don't get to rewrite a child's identity," she said. "You don't get to create a polished family image while hiding the truth behind the scenes. And you certainly don't get to weaponize privacy when convenient and ignore it when it isn't." It wasn't an accusation. It was a challenge. The backlash was immediate. Conservative commentators criticized her for involving Barron, calling him a child who should be left out of politics. But Crockett's office responded the same afternoon with a firm statement to the press. "This isn't about targeting a child. It's about what those in power bury to protect their narrative. The truth deserves to be revealed, even when inconvenient." By the next morning, Crockett's tweet had gone viral. "The truth always has a birth certificate." 12 words, and it sparked nationwide discussion. Major news outlets replayed the press conference. Analysis appeared on Medium, Newsweek, and Politico. Panels debated whether Crockett had crossed a line, or if she had finally opened a door people had long ignored. Yet what truly captured attention wasn't her tone or the leak itself. It was the principle she was standing for. It was the way she paused mid-sentence, leaving a sense of more unsaid. She wasn't withholding because she couldn't speak. It just wasn't the right moment yet. Melania Trump had remained silent. No public statements, no social media posts, no messages from representatives. That silence only amplified the weight of Crockett's words. A retired D.C. family court judge, now living in Sarasota, called into a late-night radio show and said something unexpected. "There were cases around that time I couldn't touch. Cases that went straight to federal court. Never saw that before." 2005. "I just followed protocol, but it raised eyebrows." Questions began circulating. What kind of custody case would escalate to federal court without a criminal component? What was so sensitive that entire blocks of information were removed from public records? People noticed. Not just journalists or analysts, but everyday Americans. Bartenders in Ocala, teachers in Scranton, Army veterans in Little Rock, all began asking the same question. Why hide something unless it mattered? Yet the person everyone wanted to hear from remained silent, and that silence started to feel heavy, like pressure building in a sealed room. Barron Trump had always avoided the spotlight. He rarely posted online, skipped rallies, and avoided press events. Even stories about college admissions rarely reached the tabloids. He stayed mostly in Miami, away from public scrutiny. Then came the podcast. Supposed to be a casual Gen Z-focused show called The Ditch, hosted by two former college roommates from Gainesville. They had a reputation for honesty and blunt questions, but no one expected Barron to appear. Not even the hosts, until a cryptic email arrived from an anonymous assistant. "He wants to speak." No PR. No filters. They assumed it was a joke, until he walked into the rented studio 2 days later. Quiet, composed, wearing a plain black hoodie and jeans, Barron appeared without visible Secret Service. The episode wasn't live, but it was uploaded within an hour, and it immediately went viral. The first 5 minutes were light conversation about video games, college, and growing up in a famous household. Then the host, Cass Barrow, asked the question everyone had been waiting for. "Do you want to talk about the DNA thing?" Barron paused, exhaled sharply, and nodded. "It's garbage," he said. "That leak, that file. It's disgusting. It's the kind of thing people do when they think someone's too quiet to fight back." His voice trembled, not from weakness, but restraint. People think silence is consent or guilt. Sometimes silence is just survival. That's what it was for me. Leaning forward, elbows on the mic table, he continued. "I'm not pretending this didn't affect me. Imagine being 19, and the whole world speculating if your dad is even your dad. People analyzing your face, your height, Your bloodline like it's national news. The hosts tried to pivot, possibly to protect him, but Barron didn't back down. And now Congresswoman Crockett is involved. I understand she's doing her job, but this isn't politics to me. This is my life, my family, my mom. He paused, swallowing, looking directly at the camera. I asked for a private DNA test. I didn't have to. I don't owe that to anyone, but I need it for myself. There was no grandstanding, no attacks, no defense of his father. Just a 19-year-old speaking honestly, finally unburdening a secret he had carried his entire life. The clip exploded online, reaching 14 million views in just 3 hours. The response was immediate. Some praised his composure and maturity, others questioned the necessity of the test if the rumors were false. But most importantly, people finally saw him as human. Not a meme, not a symbol, not a political pawn, but a young man trying to understand who he really was. Back-channel chatter intensified. Former White House aides began messaging journalists. One sent a note to Clarissa Doyle in Tempe. He's not lying. He's been asking questions for years. That's why there's tension in the House. Melania has been trying to protect him. Trump himself said little, but a former staffer confirmed that Barron had been excluded from certain family discussions for years. When Barron appeared on the podcast, people began revisiting old clips, TV interviews, photos, red carpet appearances, analyzing every glance, every silence. In reality, most of the hidden layers existed only in viewers' minds. Barron offered nothing dramatic. No accusations, no sensational claims, just honesty. And that struck harder than any scandal ever could. While Barron's voice circulated across social media, someone else had been quietly paying attention, and her decision would soon shift the narrative entirely. The public wasn't the only group caught off guard. Inside Mar-a-Lago, reactions were more complicated. Staff spoke little on record, but anonymous sources from Palm Beach to Fort Pierce began quietly leaking details. A longtime household assistant, who had worked with the family since the mid-2000s, gave an anonymous interview at a diner near Highway 50 in Orlando. Stirring her coffee with shaking hands, she recalled, "He's been asking questions since he was 14, not just, is dad really my dad? But things like, why do people react to me the way they do, or why don't we ever talk about life before I was born?" She paused. You ever see a kid ask for a photo and be told it's too private? Not a baby photo, not a birth certificate, just a regular picture. Other sources corroborated similar observations. Barron was well cared for materially, well-dressed, well-fed, but emotionally distant. There was a palpable absence, noticeable even when everyone was present. An old security contractor recalled a day in 2019, when Barron had just turned 13. He found a sealed legal envelope in the guest study and asked about it. Within 15 minutes, the East Wing went quiet. Staff were sent away. He never mentioned it again. These weren't isolated anecdotes. They were pieces of a puzzle never meant for public eyes. Meanwhile, reporters combed through 2016 campaign records, financial disclosures, travel logs, and meeting schedules. One entry stood out, a 6-hour block marked Family Coordination, with a private counsel named just 2 weeks before the Republican National Convention. At the time, it hadn't seemed unusual. Campaigns often tightly manage optics. But looking back, it appeared to be damage control. The name listed, Vincent Laram, a retired attorney from West Palm Beach, was unfamiliar to Trump's public team. Yet Laram's name appeared quietly on the 2005 court filing that had first leaked. Someone had brought him back. But why? Journalists attempted to reach Laram, but his daughter answered. She explained he had suffered a stroke in 2020 and could no longer speak. He barely remembered details from his practice but had once whispered that he had to protect a boy who didn't yet realize he needed protecting at Mar-a-Lago. Tension continued to mount. Melania hadn't left the property for 3 days. Staff reported she ate all meals in her room, had shortened phone calls, and canceled her usual garden walks. Rumors circulated that she was angry about Barron speaking publicly. Not because of what he said, but because she hadn't been informed in advance. Others suggested she was heartbroken, witnessing her son carry a burden she thought was buried forever. A former White House florist shared an anecdote on a local podcast in Port St. Lucie. She recalled a small box wrapped in blue silk that Melania kept in the residence. She had thought it contained baby photos, but the way Melania held it, it seemed heavier, like it contained history she wanted preserved. Donald Trump, meanwhile, had not publicly addressed the podcast. His Truth Social account posted vague statements about sick lies and left-wing attacks on his family, but offered no comment on Barron, no defense of Melania, and no acknowledgement of the interview. Even longtime Trump supporters began questioning the silence on conservative forums. Why hadn't he defended his son? Why wasn't he dismissing it as fake news? Why was he, of all people, so silent? Clarissa Doyle speculated in her newsletter. The silence wasn't political. It was personal. This wasn't a playbook maneuver. It was a family secret, and secrets rot when sealed too long. While the household remained quiet, someone from the past stepped forward, claiming knowledge of why that silence had been maintained long before anyone was watching. Her name was Ramona Tisdale. In 2016, she had worked behind the scenes on a presidential campaign few expected to win. Officially, she was a logistics consultant, coordinating schedules and hotel blocks. Unofficially, she managed sensitive tasks that never appeared on spreadsheets. NDAs, silent contracts, internal redirections. She was efficient, invisible when necessary. By 2025, she was ready to speak, not for fame or money, no book deals or TV appearances, just to tell what she knew. She met with Max Fielding, a college journalist from Tallahassee Community College, who had posted online about interns seeing unusual campaign activity. Ramona contacted him directly. Their interview took place in a public library conference room. No legal teams, no lighting crews, just Max and Ramona, a woman in her early 50s wearing a blue wool sweater, her hand shaking slightly with each sip of water. When asked why she reached out, she said plainly, "Because I kept quiet too long. And I saw a kid on a podcast trying to hold his identity together while adults played chess with his life." Her voice was calm, deliberate. She recalled a phrase, custodial patchwork, used once in a private campaign meeting between a strategy session and a legal debrief. The discussion wasn't on the official agenda. Devices were collected, no notes or recordings allowed. They were told the paperwork had been handled in 2005, and if anything surfaced, it would be addressed through channels, her exact words. She never saw the documents herself but remembered the tension. People stopped blinking, silence filling the room. A senior advisor had warned, the child's status is not to be discussed inside or outside the campaign. It's classified under personal national interest. Do not ask, do not speculate. If anyone brings it up, you never heard it. Ramona hadn't thought about it for years, until the leak in Jasmine Crockett's viral tweet resurfaced that old tension. Max's video didn't need millions of views. It only needed to reach one person, Jasmine Crockett. Within 2 days, Crockett invited Ramona to testify in a private congressional advisory session. No cameras, no media, only sworn statements in silence. When Crockett emerged, she offered reporters a single sentence. "This goes higher than people realize, not just political structure, but institutional structure." She didn't elaborate, and she didn't need to. That same day, a memo leaked through an anonymous government watchdog account in Sacramento. Dated April 2006, it was labeled, Family Protection Special Order. Its origin was redacted, but its contents were clear. Reallocation of custody documents, sealed. Authorized withholding of identity-sensitive data. Non-disclosure protocols regarding juvenile national figures. Nothing confirmed the rumors, but it created a wall of smoke thick enough to stop anyone from pretending this was mere gossip. At the center of it all was a teenager, now legally an adult, asking questions men in suits had tried to bury under red tape and privilege. News anchors speculated. Cable panels debated. Some called it coincidence, others manipulation. But most people, whispering in grocery stores, texting friends, or over dinner, realized there was no reason to redact these documents unless something worth hiding existed. Clarissa Doyle followed with another post. You don't cover up a paternity question for 20 years unless it threatens more than family reputation. You cover it up because someone promised it would never come out. And now that promise is broken. Late one night, without press or ceremony, without any comment from Trump or even Melania, a package arrived at a private Coral Springs lab. Inside was a single swab, no name, only a barcode. While the lab prepared its analysis, someone who had remained silent all this time was already drafting the response she never thought she'd need to give. From the outside, the building looked ordinary. A strip mall unit next to a dentist and a vegan bakery. Inside, The lab operated with complete discretion. DNA analysis was their specialty, particularly for high-profile, confidential cases. No photos. No questions. Everything moved forward. The swab arrived late Thursday, hand-delivered by a man in a plain white shirt and jeans. No security, no flashy SUV, no clipboard. Just a quiet handoff to the technician, followed by a scan, sealed confirmation, and silence. Dr. Theo Braswell, the lab director with over 20 years of experience, wasn't easily rattled. But when he read the internal note attached to the sample, independent verification paternity 2005 birth immediate confidentiality enforced, his pulse quickened. He knew exactly what he was handling. They had processed celebrity tests before. Prenups, inheritance disputes, immigration cases, but never anything like this. This was not just a family matter. This was the kind of sample that demanded gloves and complete discretion. Meanwhile, somewhere in Miami, Barron waited. His location was private. He'd turned off his phone. Only a few trusted contacts could reach him, and even they weren't sure what to say. He told them one thing after dropping off the swab. If it's true, I deal with it. If it's not, they leave me alone. He didn't tell his father, his mother, or even the podcast hosts who had given him his first real public voice. Melania, however, had been silent for weeks, until now. On a calm Sunday afternoon, she scheduled a one-on-one interview with ENS Robinson, a Slovenian-American journalist who had always treated her with respect. No gossip, no traps, just straight talk. The location was neutral. A private studio in Naples, Florida. She arrived on time. Alone. The cameras rolled. No audience. Just Melania, a glass of water, and the weight of nearly 20 years pressing on her. I did what I had to do, she said quietly. I protected my son the only way I knew how. Robinson didn't interrupt. She simply nodded, letting the silence speak. When I was pregnant, things were complicated, Melania continued. Donald and I were not in a perfect place. There were many pressures. Legal, financial, personal. Someone came forward, someone who made a claim. The word claim landed heavily. We didn't know what to believe, she admitted, but we agreed it would never go public. We handled it under legal oversight. We sealed the situation for everyone's protection, including Barron's. Robinson pressed. So are you saying Donald might not be? Melania sighed. We lived with uncertainty for years, she said. Then we chose to stop questioning it because the truth became less important than the image. But Barron wasn't part of that decision, and now he's paying for it. Her voice cracked momentarily. Not from guilt, but from memory. He used to ask why his father didn't attend certain school events, why he seemed more like a public figure than a parent. I told him it was because he was busy, but deep down, I wondered if Donald also feared the answer. She paused again, thinking of the leak. I knew it would surface eventually. I didn't think he'd do the test. I hoped he wouldn't. Are you afraid of the result? Robinson asked. Melania looked directly into the lens for the first time. No, she said. Because whatever it says, I know who raised him. I know who loved him. Blood doesn't raise a child. I did. The interview aired as a special segment the next night. No editing, no music, just her voice. People listened. Some applauded her honesty. Others accused her of deflection. But no one could deny the rawness in her words. She wasn't protecting a brand. She wasn't playing politics. She was speaking as a mother, not a former First Lady. Back at the lab, Dr. Braswell completed the processing Monday morning. The results were simple, clear, conclusive. He sealed the envelope, marked personal, eyes only, and placed it in a locked courier pouch. No digital copy. No backup. The package was sent to Barron's lawyer. Barron didn't open it immediately. He took a 2-hour walk through a park in Pinehurst, unnoticed. He bought a smoothie, watched kids play soccer, and just breathed. He wasn't the son of a former president. He wasn't a trending topic. He was a young man holding a truth that could change everything. When he finally opened the envelope, the impact was immediate. Not cinematic, but very real. The paper was plain. No letterhead, no seal. Just numbers, ratios, and one final line in bold. Paternity, not confirmed. He read it repeatedly. No percentages. No ambiguity. Just the truth. He didn't cry. He didn't curse. He folded the paper neatly and placed it back in the envelope. Then he called the only person who could give him a deeper perspective. Melania. She answered on the third ring. Is it done? She asked quietly. I need to see you, Barron said. They met at a small rented house in Wellington, far from the press and the noise. Melania was already there. No makeup, hair pinned back, slippers on her feet. He sat across from her at the kitchen table. They didn't speak for a while, just the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Why didn't you tell me? He finally asked. In that moment, Melania didn't see a teenager. She saw the little boy she used to rock to sleep, the one who called her name in the night, the one she thought she could protect from everything, even the truth. Because I didn't know for sure, she said quietly. And I was scared that once I opened that door, I wouldn't be able to close it again. Barron stared. You guessed I might not be his, and you just stayed quiet. Melania didn't flinch. She didn't make excuses. I loved you. That was the one thing she knew for certain. Everything else, everything involving Donald, had always been complicated. She explained it plainly, back in 2004, during one of Donald's extended absences. She'd had a brief encounter with someone from her past, someone she never expected to see again. When she discovered she was pregnant, questions followed, but Trump had already begun laying the groundwork for a presidential run, long before it became public. He wanted the child to fit the perfect image, the next chapter of the Trump name. He didn't ask any questions. Not one. She said he simply wanted to claim the child, to look down at his hand and take ownership. So you went along with it? Barron asked. I did, she admitted. At the time I thought it was safer that way, for you, for me. Safer from what he demanded, from being erased. That word, erased, hung heavy. It wasn't about money or power. It was about the lengths people go to protect an image when the truth threatens it. Did he ever suspect? Barron pressed. Melania looked away. I think he always knew deep down. But knowing and admitting are two different things, especially for a man like him. Barron exhaled quietly. There was no anger, just exhaustion. He's never called, Barron said. Not once since the leak. Not even a text. Melania's gaze held years of protective instinct misapplied. He doesn't know how, she said. That answer didn't satisfy Barron, but he didn't push further. There was nothing left to push. The paper had already spoken. Trump's silence was louder than any statement he could have made. But that silence wouldn't last. The leak of the test result didn't come from Barron. It didn't come from his mother. It came from someone in the courier chain, perhaps a clerk, perhaps an opportunist. By Thursday morning, screenshots were circulating. The official wording, the barcode, and the phrase paternity not confirmed, stamped clearly at the bottom. The news exploded. CNN ran panels for 6 hours straight. Fox called it a privacy violation masquerading as journalism. Conservative radio warned it was a trap. Progressives debated the ethics of concealed family truths. And for the public, the details hardly mattered. They just wanted to see what would happen next.